Have you ever wondered why that person at work who walks all over everyone else got the promotion? Or why that acquaintance who seems to care about no one is doing better in life than you, who always tries to do the right thing? If you've ever felt like the world rewards the wrong people, then this video is for you. Today we'll explore one of German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche's most provocative reflections on why people we consider bad or selfish often achieve more success than those who strive to be good by conventional standards. And spoiler alert, the answer isn't what you probably imagine. Nietzsche wasn't advocating that we should be cruel or dishonest. In fact, he was pointing out something much more subtle and disturbing about how society works and what it truly means to have strength of character. Prepare to question some of your most basic beliefs about morality and success, because what we're about to discover may completely change the way you see the world. When Nietzsche spoke of going beyond good and evil, he wasn't suggesting that we should become conscienceless psychopaths. That's one of the most misinterpretations of his thinking. What he really meant was that we need to question whether our concepts of good and evil are truly our own, or whether we've simply absorbed what society has told us is right and wrong. Think about it. From a young age, we're taught that we should be good, obey the rules, not question authority, and always think of others before ourselves. But do these rules actually make us better people, or just more manageable? Nietzsche suspected that often our goodness is nothing more than disguised conformity. The people who seem most successful are often those who have managed to develop their own values, regardless of what society expects of them. They aren't necessarily bad, but they are courageous enough to follow their own moral compass, even when it puts them at odds with social expectations. Imagine that person at work who doesn't hesitate to self-promote, who talks openly about their achievements, and who negotiates salaries assertively. To many, they may seem arrogant or selfish, but perhaps they've simply transcended the social programming that teaches us to be modest and humble even when it hurts us. One of Nietzsche's most important concepts is the will to power. And no, this doesn't mean the desire to dominate others like a dictator. The will to power is the inner force that drives us to grow, overcome obstacles, create, and become the best version of ourselves. It's the vital impulse that makes us want to expand our capabilities and realize our potential. The problem is that society often suppresses this will to power through what Nietzsche called herd morality. This morality teaches us that it's wrong to stand out too much, that we should always think of the collective before ourselves, and that humility is always a virtue. But is that really true? People who can maintain their will to power, even when facing social pressure, often achieve more in life because they aren't limited by others' expectations. They set ambitious goals, take calculated risks, and don't settle for mediocrity just to please others. Let's be honest. How many times have you stopped yourself from pursuing something you truly wanted because you worried about what others would think? How many times have you sabotaged yourself to not appear arrogant? The people you consider bad might simply be those who refused to sabotage themselves in this way. Of course, there's a difference between having a healthy will to power and being genuinely destructive. Nietzsche wasn't advocating that we step on others to get ahead, but he was pointing out that our tendency to judge as bad anyone who refuses to diminish themselves may be preventing us from recognizing genuine strength of character. Here we come to a point that may bother many people, but it's important to face this reflection. Nietzsche observed that often what we call kindness can actually be weakness in disguise. Not all kindness, of course, but specifically the kindness born of fear of confrontation, the need for approval, or the inability to set boundaries. Think about that person who always says yes to everything, who never expresses their true opinions to avoid conflict, who constantly sacrifices themselves for others, but deep down resents them. They may appear good on the surface, but this kindness is built on a foundation of fear and insecurity, not genuine inner strength. On the other hand, someone who can say no when necessary, who stands up for their positions even when they're unpopular, and who sets clear boundaries may be seen as difficult or selfish. But this person may be demonstrating a more mature form of integrity. This is where the situation becomes especially disturbing for those who have never reflected on it. Often, the people we judge as worse are simply those who have developed the courage to be authentic, while we are stuck in patterns of behavior imposed on us since childhood. Before continuing, if you find these reflections interesting and want to see more content on philosophy and psychology applied to everyday life, consider subscribing to the channel and leaving a like. This helps me a lot in continuing to bring you this type of content. And now, let's delve even deeper into this discussion. Nietzsche had a concept he called free spirits, people capable of independent thought, questioning traditions, and creating their own values. These free spirits are often misunderstood by society precisely because they don't fit the expected mold. What happens is that these people pay a social price for their authenticity. They may be seen as arrogant, difficult to deal with, or even mean because they don't follow the unwritten rules of appropriate social behavior. But, paradoxically, this very independence of thought is often what leads them to success. Let's consider some concrete examples. Steve Jobs was known for being extremely demanding and sometimes cruel to his employees. Many considered him a difficult person, but it was precisely his refusal to accept mediocrity and his will to create revolutionary products that led to his extraordinary success. This doesn't mean we should be cruel to people, but it might mean we need to rethink our tendency to negatively judge anyone who refuses to be nice by conventional standards. The free spirit doesn't seek external approval as a primary source of validation. They've developed an internal moral compass strong enough to withstand social pressures, and that's precisely what enables them to make decisions that people more dependent on the approval of others wouldn't. But be careful. Being a free spirit doesn't mean being reckless or irresponsible. In fact, it requires even greater responsibility, because you have to bear the consequences of your choices without being able to blame the rules or society when things go wrong. We've reached the most provocative point of this entire discussion. In the modern world, especially in the corporate world and on social media, being too nice can literally be a recipe for mediocrity. And this creates a disturbing paradox. To achieve genuine success, we often need to do things that go against our social programming to be a good person. Let's be practical. In the job market, who gets the best positions? Often, it's those who know how to self-promote, who negotiate assertively, who aren't afraid to take credit for their work, and who can network strategically. To someone raised with values of modesty and humility, these attitudes may seem bad or false. But are they really? Or have we been conditioned to view self-worth as something negative because it serves the interests of those who prefer to keep us small and controllable? Consider romantic relationships. How many people get stuck in unfulfilling situations because they've been taught that love is sacrifice and that setting boundaries is selfish? Meanwhile, people who can maintain their individuality and establish healthy boundaries often have more balanced and satisfying relationships. The same applies to financial life. People who negotiate better, invest more aggressively, take calculated risks, and don't feel guilty about wanting financial prosperity often achieve greater economic security. But our culture still carries remnants of a morality that views financial success as suspect. Nietzsche anticipated this modern paradox when he criticized herd morality. He realized that moral systems that discourage individual excellence and self-realization ultimately produce societies of frustrated and mediocre people, who then project their resentment onto the few who have managed to transcend these limitations. This doesn't mean we should become unscrupulous. It means we need to develop discernment to distinguish between genuine strength of character and unnecessary cruelty. between healthy self-worth and destructive narcissism, between setting boundaries and being insensitive to the needs of others. After all this reflection, we return to the original question. Why do the worst people seem to be more successful? Nietzsche's answer is both disturbing and liberating. Perhaps they aren't the worst people. Perhaps they are simply the bravest. What we call evil in many of these people may actually be the courage to live by their own values, even when it goes against social expectations. It's the ability to set limits, to pursue their goals with determination, and to not sabotage themselves to please others. This doesn't mean we should become cruel or insensitive people. It means we need to deeply question which of our values are genuinely ours and which were merely implanted in us by a society that may have an interest in keeping us small and controllable. True strength of character, according to Nietzsche, lies not in blindly following traditional moral rules, but in developing the wisdom and courage to create our own ethical values, taking full responsibility for the consequences of our choices. Perhaps the problem isn't that bad people are more successful, but that we've been conditioned to view any form of personal strength, healthy ambition, and self-worth as bad. And as long as we remain trapped in this programming, we'll remain frustrated, watching other people achieve what we secretly desire for ourselves. The question remains, do you have the courage to question your own concepts of good and evil? Can you distinguish between genuine kindness and disguised conformity? And most importantly, are you willing to take responsibility for creating your own values, even if it means being misunderstood by some? These are questions each person needs to answer for themselves. But one thing is certain. Pretending these issues don't exist won't make your life more authentic or successful. Sometimes true kindness requires having the courage to appear bad in the eyes of those who prefer to see us as small.